For those of you who don't plan to die, our speaker today will enlighten us on the finer points of not dying and what happens when you don't plan. Gail is the author and host of the award-winning book and TV series, A Good Goodbye, Funeral Planning for Those Who Don't Plan to Die. She brought the Death Cafe concept to Albuquerque, the second city in the U.S. to hold these events. Gail is a certified thanatologist, a pioneering death educator, and certified funeral celebrant who creates memorial services that are all about the person who died. And she will be one of the featured speakers at TED Albuquerque at Pope Joy Hall on September the 12th. If you don't do TED, get it. They're fascinating. I've known Gail for quite a few years. I asked her to come in because one way or another, we're all going to have to deal with the dying part of life, either we or our friends. And I thought she would be able to share some ideas and thoughts, and we have a good recommendation from Chet over here, too.
Thank you, Donna. First of all, congratulations for being here today. You knew the topic was new trends in death care, and you came anyway. My business card, my title is The Doyen of Death. That's death, not death. A doyen is a woman who's considered senior in a group who knows a lot about a particular subject. So that would be me when it comes to the party no one wants to plan a funeral or memorial service. And I was not always the doyen of death. I actually come from a background as a public relations professional and event planner. And this is one event a lot of people don't want to plan. I came to it because I got married for the second time in 2000. Had a very creative Jewish Western wedding just up the road at Congregation Albert. We asked our guests to wear Western wear. We had the reception at Los Amigos Roundup in the North Valley. We had a Western swing band. Everybody had such a good time. I wanted to write a book about creative life cycle events and call it Matchings, Hatchings, and Dispatchings. About weddings, births, and deaths. And I got to write a column in the Albuquerque Tribune by that name, and it was the columns on death and funerals that got the most reader response. So it told me there's a real need to be able to have this conversation. So I focused in on funerals, and my book, A Good Goodbye, Funeral Planning for Those Who Don't Plan to Die, was the result of it. And you can tell it's got humor in it because there's a Pearls Before Swine cartoon on the cover. So when you think about weddings and funerals, there are a lot of things in common. These are life cycle events that are very stressful. And if brides and grooms plan their weddings the way most people plan their funerals, they'd be scrambling to pull everything together in 3 to 5 days. Talk about stress. Well, today we know we have a lot of creativity going into wedding planning. We also have a lot of creativity going into funeral planning. And yes, in spite of great advances in medical care, humans do still have a 100% mortality rate. So we are all going to die. And today we're going to talk about 3 new trends in cremation, in green burial home funerals, and creative life celebrations. I just returned from the Cremation Association of North America's annual convention. It was founded in 1913, so cremation's been around for a while. And every year they issue a national report about cremation rates in the United States. Who here plans to be cremated after you're dead, of course? Wow. The rate for the state of New Mexico, and all of your hands tell me maybe even more exceeding in this room, we have a statewide rate of 58% people choosing cremation. I think we're more like 75% in this room. The national average is 46.7%. So you've got states like Nevada where it's more like 76% of the population, and states like Mississippi where it's more like 19%. Could you all share with me to shout out, why are you choosing cremation?
Spread at home.
You
I want to be spread at home.
spread at home.
Now water me in.
And what are you in? Space?
I don't want to rot.
You don't want to rot. Burn. Oh, yes.
Land is too expensive.
Land is too expensive.
My family says I'm going to burn in hell anyway.
Is anybody concerned about cost?
Yes.
Okay. In fact, cremation and funerals, depending on what you do around them, can cost the same. Although, when you're comparing just direct cremation, you could spend probably about $1,000 once you add gross receipts tax, because the state does add gross receipts tax to your burning in the retorts. When my father-in-law died in 2009, I had pre-planned for him, and he was buried. It was a Jewish burial. So, Jewish burial, we're going to talk a little more about that later on. But, so you had the cost of the burial plot, the funeral director services, the casket, the opening and closing of the grave. There are all these costs that do add up, and the cemetery costs are different from funeral home costs. It was about $10,000 in 2009. So I hear cost being a big reason, but you can do a huge party and services all around a cremation, and it can add up to the same thing. Is anyone concerned about the environment, thinking that cremation is environmentally friendly? I heard not taking up space, but you know what? I'm a fan of cemeteries. They're green spaces, and they're actually kind of nice. Would you rather see another Walmart with their big parking lots going? That's another way of taking up space that you're not taking up. But cremation, you may not know, does have an environmental impact in terms of generating CO2, the greenhouse gas. An average size person, it generates 532 pounds of CO2 when you're cremated. Now, to put that in perspective, I have solar panels on my house here in sunny New Mexico, and it tells me, it's a 4.05 kilowatt system, tells me how much CO2 I'm offsetting by generating electricity from the sun. And I would have to run my panels for 14 sunny New Mexico days to offset one cremation. And in a cloudier climate, it could be up to a month. So when you multiply that by 1.4 million people in the United States who were cremated last year, that starts to have an environmental impact. And one other great thing, I'm looking at your dog here, Michael, and what a cute dog that is. You can be cremated and interred with your pet. Best Friends Cemetery, pet cemetery, allows people to have their cremated remains interred with the cremated remains of your pet. You can spend forever with your best friend. Now, there is an option for reducing your body to cremated remains called alkaline hydrolysis. We don't have a working system here in New Mexico. There is actually it was called a tissue digester at the University of New Mexico, but it's not working. But there are a handful of funeral homes around the country that have an alkaline hydrolysis system which uses 1/10 of the energy of a fire-based cremation system and will reduce the body basically to the building blocks of life, and you're left with sandy remains of the bones. And those can be returned to the family as cremated remains. So, anybody have any questions about cremation? You want to shout out before we move on to talking about...
Is there laws against where you put your remains?
I can't tell you how many thousands of people have their remains buried on Sandia Crest. But it is not illegal to scatter up there. It's sort of a don't ask, don't tell kind of situation. And in fact, you can get a permit from the National Park Service to scatter in national parks. As long as you don't dump them all in one place, you actually want to scatter them. What is illegal is to set up a monument marking the spot where the ashes were cremated. And actually, Chet told me a story about a young lady who came to New Mexico who was looking for the spot the ashes of her grandfather were buried. And there was no actual place that they could say he was scattered. And she got very upset, saying, "How could you do this?" And this is something that you need to think about if you're thinking about being scattered. Very often this skips a generation that, maybe your kids don't care where your ashes are scattered, but the grandkids want to know where your mortal remains might be. So it's worth thinking about saving some of those remains. If you want to keep them in the house, put them in a place of honor, not in the closet. So another trend that I'm seeing more and more of is green burial and home funerals. Now, when you think about the history of undertaking in the United States, before the rise of the modern funeral director in the 20th century, every burial was a green burial and every funeral was a home funeral. Usually the women took care of it. You laid out the body in the front parlor and you would have your viewing there at home. And there have been changes over the years. And if you are concerned about embalming or the idea of the resources that go into the ground, the metal, the wood with vaults and metal caskets, etc., Jewish burial is naturally green burial. The Jewish tradition will avoid embalming. The body is refrigerated. The body is dressed in cotton or linen clothing and put in a plain pine box and put in contact with the earth. So if the idea of having a green burial in a conventional cemetery appeals to you, just go to French and tell them, "I want a Jewish burial." You don't have to be Jewish to get it. And then you would be able to rest in peace with minimizing your impact on the environment that way. Home funerals. Look me in the eye and tell me, would you want to deal with a dead body in your home? Probably not. It's not for everybody, but home funerals, just like the baby boomers had their effect on home births, I'm hearing more and more about it. There is an organization called the Home Funeral Alliance, which helps people who want to do death care in their home to wash and dress the body before final disposition. However, this is why we pay funeral directors to do what they do. They help us with the paperwork. If you're going to do it yourself, you have to register with the Vital Statistics Office in Santa Fe so you can get a death certificate. And you need to get a burial transit permit from the Office of the Medical Investigator and other such things. You don't want to be hauling grandma around in your car and get stopped by a policeman and not have that burial transit permit to say, yes, it's okay. But you can do a home funeral here in the state of New Mexico if you are so inclined. The Indian nations do it, and it can be a very healing process of saying goodbye to somebody and realizing, yes, this person really is dead. If you're going to keep somebody at home, keep them cool with dry ice. And one thing about dry ice, you want to make sure the window is open a crack, because carbon dioxide can build up in the room and you can suffocate if you're not careful with dry ice. Okay. And then there are many, many ways to celebrate life. One of the things that I do, I do write about trends in the industry that I see. And I am a blogger. My blog is called The Family Plot on goodgoodbye.com. And a few years ago, for 3 years in a row, I did a project called My 30 Funerals in 30 Days. And I would read the obituaries, and every day for 30 days, I went to a funeral and blogged about it. I would ask the permission of the family before I did that. And I attended some really interesting funerals, including a home funeral out on the east side of the mountain. But consider, a lot of people want funerals to be celebrations of life now. That is how they are evolving. People don't want to go to something that's a downer. They want to be able to laugh. But you know, you want to be able to laugh and cry. This is the reason we have these kind of life celebration events, because it is a major change in life that we want to recognize and support the people that we love. One that I attended was a biker funeral for a guy named Freddie Drake Jr. Freddie died on his motorcycle, wiped out on the freeway. He wasn't wearing a helmet. The Banditos Motorcycle Club underwrote his funeral. He was in a casket, and all the clubs there, and I'm talking, these were motorcycle guys with tattoos and their colors, and the 78 Harley-Davidson motorcycles in the parking lot. They had the singing of Amazing Grace, but it was sung to the tune of the House of the Rising Sun. They had a photo montage of Freddie throughout his life, and you could see his tattoos multiplying and his amazing collection of t-shirts. And they had a ride following Freddie. 78 of these Harley-Davidsons took the back road up to Santa Fe because Freddie was a Navy veteran, so he was buried in the Santa Fe National Cemetery. What a send-off that was. It was awesome. And if you think you want to tell someone, don't have a funeral for me, please think again. If people didn't love you, don't worry, they wouldn't go to the trouble. One of the other funerals that I attended was a memorial luncheon in a bowling alley bar for a guy named Howard Strunk. I don't know if you knew Howard. He was a member of the Optimists, not the Rotary. But he was a big supporter of the YMCA. And his wife decided she didn't want to have a funeral for him. But the people in the Optimist Club and the bartender at the Strike Zone bar wanted to honor this man's memory. So they got together and had this memorial luncheon and raised a toast in his honor. And I did want to let you know, I have an ebook free that you can sign up for about creating memorial services. If you'd be interested, Donna's passing around a clipboard. You can put your name and address on there, and I will send you a link to download Celebrating Life with templates and tips for creating a memorable memorial service. Any other questions before we wrap up here? Yes, sir.
So I've heard about a particular process, people wanting to have a minimal impact on the environment. There's a couple of graveyards, one in San Diego that I know of, where you're put in a cardboard box, you're not treated, and essentially you go into what, like a botanic garden for the dead. Do you know of anything like that near-ish in the Rocky Mountain area?
Well, in fact, outside of Santa Fe, the Galisteo Basin Preserve is working on setting up a green burial ground. It's been in the works for years, and as far as I know, it's still not quite ready yet, but you might want to write that down, Galisteo Basin Preserve. And there are also actually old Catholic cemeteries here. You could be buried in the ground, in contact with the earth, and it's the high desert version of a green burial ground.
And did you also have to read that recently in the Wall Street Journal, they had an article that Disneyland actually has specially trained people to recover remains after people unlawfully try to scatter them in Disneyland?
The Pirates of the Caribbean ride has gotten clogged with cremated remains. People scattering in that ride, yeah. It's a problem. Yeah. One more.
How does leading your remains to science fit with all this?
Yes, you can get a free cremation by donating your body to science, UNM Medical School, or have as a plan B some of the national services, Life, Legacy, MedCure, and it's in the BioGift. No, not BioGift. There are brochures on your tables with tips that you are welcome to take, and I've got more up here if you run out. But yes, you can donate your body. They will do whatever they do with it, and then cremate and return the remains to your family at no cost. You get a death certificate, and but there are caveats, so be aware of that. And there are more details in the brochure.
Does the same thing apply for organ donation?
No, unfortunately not. When you mark on your driver's license that you want to donate your organs, that is very noble of you, but you don't get a free cremation as a result of that. Your family will still have to pay for your burial. So, my wrap, yes. So I hope you will check out TED Talks, and September 12th is our TEDx ABQ talk. And I encourage you to do some pre-need funeral planning. When you plan ahead, you can reduce stress, you can minimize family conflict, you can save money, and you can create a meaningful, memorable, good goodbye. My motto is, talking about sex won't make you pregnant, and talking about funerals won't make you dead.